You sent me this article from Bounding Into Comics that says Catholic priest urges everyone to avoid Padre Pio movie starring Shia LaBeouf. I was really excited to see this, and I am going to watch it. But you've already seen it, and you said it was god awful.
Well, I wouldn't say god awful.
Well, you did.
A bit of blasphemy. Oh, really? Did I?
Yeah, you did.
Yeah, it is. God would not approve, I don't think. No.
So, what was your take?
Okay, so, I mean, I'll try to make it as brief and not really give too much away. But if you've seen the trailer, which a lot of people, I'm sure, have, it's been a viral thing, Shia LaBeouf as Padre Pio does not have as big an impact on this movie just with his on-screen time alone, as is the story about him. So he's in it for maybe about a combined, I said 15 to 20 minutes earlier, I'll maybe say 20 to 25 minutes. He's not in the movie. The movie is basically a Marxist love letter from its director, and remind me of the director's name,
Abel
Ferrara, who actually has made some decent films in the 80s and the 90s, but he did start out as a porn director, so we can't be surprised about what type of movie this guy makes. But the only saving grace of this movie is Shia LaBeouf as Padre Pio. He does, anytime Padre Pio is doing a mass, he does it in Latin, so Shia had to learn the Latin. But other than that, like, they make this whole political movie about communists, socialists versus the rise of fascism in Italy, but they make no mention of Padre Pio's political history, which he was very heavily politically involved, especially later on in the 40s, 50s, and 60s, where he helped this sounds bad, but the Democratic Christians, that party in Italy, they were basically like the bulwark against the communists and socialists. So Padre Pio was out there. Whenever he left the monastery, which was very rarely, he did so to vote against the communists and the socialists. So,
but the film is a Marxist love letter.
It 100% is. It makes the fascists out to be, the horrible landowners who provide these people with work and get out of here, poor people. It's very contrived.
If I was a cynical person, which I am much of the time, I would imagine that, like, look, if you're going to these studios and you get used to it after a while. If you're going to these studios and you're pitching a movie, right? Mm-hmm. That's a segment. Now, if you go to a studio and you say, I want to make a movie about Padre Pio, they're like, kick rocks.
Right.
We want nothing to do with that. But if you say, I want to make a movie about evil fascists, you're a lot more likely to get funding. So what creative directors have to do is they have to find ways to sneak in what they want into the confines of the rigid storytelling that these industries want them to tell.
Well, what I heard about this film is that they showed it at a film festival. I think they showed it at Cannes
or Berlin,
and
maybe.
Then got bad reviews and they had to go back and edit it to make it acceptable to get money. So maybe they edited out a lot of where Padre Pio was like in his own movie.
Maybe, probably.
To get it sold. But you said like the best thing about this movie is when Padre Pio is in it. And I see that like this review from this priest says, no, that's actually the worst part because it misrepresents who Padre Pio was and what he stood for. That the director took too many liberties with him using foul language, resorting to profanity. This argument he has with a woman who's in confession, tells her to get the F, or the devil?
That's the devil, yes.
Tells her to get the F out of his quarters.
As you would.
Uncharacteristically uses a foul word, which St. Pio never would have used.
He doesn't know that.
And then he said, when anything comes out of Hollywood, it's going to be filled with poison.
Which is partly true, though.
But there's nothing to substantiate that we know he would have said this. So
and there's also
take that liberty.
Think about it. He's Italian. He's Italian, so maybe he has a little bit of fire in him.
Do they have that word in Italian?
Yeah, fangul. That's what they say. But the thing is that part where a lot of people saw Shia say "get the F out," say "Christ is Lord," like we were saying before. When you're confronting a demon, I think any type of language is acceptable, especially when you're damning them to hell.
I wasn't aware of the context. I thought it was
right. Yeah. So a lot of people see Shia just giving confession to a woman, but the actual scene and most of the movie when Shia / Padre Pio is involved has to do with his physical battle against demons. Like Padre Pio was a very mystical saint. Like that's what we know about him. Bilocation, the stigmata, his visions, physical fights with demons. It would be in his letters that he would write to his mentors and other priests about him physically battling demons. So in this particular scene, I think the director probably took a really good creative liberty where he had the devil show up as a woman seeking confession. And I think even in the credits, that's a guy, but it looks like a woman. It's very, very weird.
Hate it when that happens.
Yeah, maybe she had some trans lighting. Who knows?
All right.
But, she had the bisexual lighting mixed with the trans lighting. That happens. I hate it when that happens.
But yeah, the confession was very, very. You can feel the tension of that scene where Padre Pio is clearly being confronted by a demon or the devil himself. So where he gets very, very upset and emotional, and confronts the devil. Where they took maybe too much of a liberal sort of creative direction with Padre Pio is where they involved like naked women as demons, kind of like gyrating on the floor of his quarters. Like that was probably unnecessary. We don't need to see that. It kind of came out of left field, but it is Abel Ferrara, and it is like a fever dream of sorts that Padre Pio could have been having. But other than that, it's really not worth your time. And if you do want to watch a relatively good movie about a 20th century saint, then I would recommend Terrence Malick's A Hidden Life. And we spoke about that briefly.
It just sounds like very deceptive and bizarre that it would be named after him, and it's really nothing.
It's
not about him.
Like you were saying,
basically has a cameo in his own movie.
Right. I mean, if you were trying to drum up money for either distribution or whatever, you would cut a trailer that seemed like 50%.
Only Shia LaBeouf in the promotional material.
Well,
exactly.
that's what a savvy business person does, because he's the draw for that movie. And there's plenty of films that have done that in the past. Where they misrepresent how much a person is in a movie.
This is disappointing because I did want to see a well-made film about Padre Pio. He's a really interesting.
Well,
even if you're not Catholic,
yeah.
he's an interesting historical figure.
Yeah.
And
that's like Kevin Spacey in Seven.
Exactly.
This is just a very lost opportunity.
That's exactly what I was thinking.
Especially after Shia LaBeouf seems to have gone through this conversion, had this conversation with Bishop Barron.
There was a lot more publicity around that than probably the actual movie.
Yeah, that's odd.
Yeah.
Did you see Nefarious?
No, I didn't. And because it was in the theater, and having a toddler is very tough to get away from her to go actually to a movie theater. But then
let's leave him at home.
Well, no, not even that. But then a couple friends of mine said, "Hey, it's streaming." I said, "Oh, cool, I'll rent it." But then it was $20 to rent it, and I was like, "I'll wait a month or two."
Evil capitalists.
I thought it was on Tubi.
No, Exemplum was on Tubi, and Exemplum is really, really, really good.
I hear Nefarious is great. Watching the trailer, it does kind of have this kind of maybe edgy Hallmarky type of vibe.
Yeah, that's what I got from the trailer, so I wasn't sure.
But here's the I liked Nefarious, but that's because I actually like both of those actors that are involved in it, Jordan Belfi and Sean Patrick Flannery.
I don't know who the other guy is.
The other guy's a pretty veteran TV. He's one of those people. If you watch a lot of TV, if you grew up watching a lot of TV,
he's on NCIS.
He shows up on a lot of the network shows. So he's a reliable dude. So maybe one of the bigger roles I had seen for him. And Sean Patrick Flannery is very clearly the star of that production. But Nefarious was very, very good, but at a higher budget. But Exemplum was made on very little money.
It was made $10,000.
What is this about?
It's
why have I never heard of it?
Directed by Paul Bois, who was on the show last week.
Yes, Paul Rowland. Technically, he went by Rowland, but he writes under Bois and directs under Rowland.
Okay,
he's a Breitbart writer.
He's a Breitbart writer, and he made this movie. It's about a priest who records people in his confessional, and he uses them for inspiration on his podcast, and then he uses one of those tapes to blackmail one of his parishioners.
Really?
When he gets
a wealthy, corrupt parishioner.
When he gets disillusioned with the church because they're going to move him to it's literally, I guess, as somebody who's not religious, I imagine it's the same thing that happens when an FBI agent screws up and they send him to whatever the Siberia. They send him to Oklahoma or something. Actually, Oklahoma might have been a hotbed for a while because of...
For a little bit. Oh.
Yeah, you know what I'm saying, though, right? So they're sending him to some nowhere parish, and he's disillusioned with the church and he loses his faith. So he decides to blackmail this parishioner, and he engages a young woman, and then it's great. You have to see it. It's fantastic.
Okay, to be narcissistic, I do have my own screenplay that slightly revolves around Catholicism. So
there you go. So,
shopping it has been a little difficult.
Yeah. Well, he said it took him a while to get the funding for this, and $9,000 that's a micro budget. That's not even.
Did it look good?
It looks fantastic. It's all in black and white.
Oh, awesome.
It's all in black and white. He does a very good job of using all his sets effectively, and shooting it in black and white allows for control of the lighting when you're outside in a way that you wouldn't be able to do without more expensive equipment.
Yeah.
So it's
very
cool.
hard to find movies that have religious themes that aren't foul these days. So
you can. If
we like Father
you can.
But yeah, like Father Stu is a good example. Yep. Like that was a good one.
But would an example almost be Prisoners? Because Prisoners kind of has like a Christian foundation. But I don't know if that would necessarily be foul.
Have you watched The Silence? I believe it's called.
The Silence.
Prisoners,
no.
you mean Villeneuve, right?
Yeah.
That had Bradley Cooper in it.
The Silence.
Playing a missionary in Japan.
No, that's Silence. That's Andrew Garfield, Adam Driver, and Liam Neeson.
Oh no,
that one's really good. I mean, people who are
the ending is controversial.
The ending's great. The ending is what that movie is all about, and you hope that ending happens, and it does. So
yeah.
Also, I mean, I don't know.
Yeah.
So that was a good one.
Thanks for watching. Listen to full episodes of Pop Culture Crisis on Spotify.
Keep up with us on social media and make sure you subscribe and ring that bell so you never miss the show. Bye, guys.